It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some new sneak peeks that were recently dropped for the upcoming episode of The Walking Dead, Season 10, Episode 13, which is called What We Become. For those who may not know, this is actually Michonne's final episode, and she will not appear in any episodes after this one, so her final send-off story will be in this episode. And of course, this being her final episode, we're most likely going to see tons and tons of callbacks and Easter eggs to previous seasons and to previous iconic Michonne scenes. In fact, one of the sneak peeks we're going to look at, which is the opening minutes, sees the return of a character who's been dead for a long time. Many of you would probably have guessed at this point who I'm talking about, even if I did not have her picture in the thumbnail. We're talking about Andrea. Of course, Andrea was essential in Michonne's first episode. She was how Michonne was introduced to the series. So it makes a lot of sense that they brought this character back. Now, don't get too excited. They didn't really bring her back. They just reused footage from that episode when Michonne appears, and Andrea just happens to be in that footage. But we're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to break it down. The other sneak peek that they released is a conversation between Virgil and Michonne. This conversation actually tells us a little bit more about what Virgil's intentions are and what he might be planning. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first shot we have from the opening minutes is this shot of Michonne with the reflection on the puddle on the ground. We see Michonne with her walker pets. Immediately, I knew this was a flashback because she no longer has her walker pets, at least not these exact walker pets that she used to have. So that's how I knew that this was a flashback. In fact, this is part of the exact same scene from Michonne's first episode, Season 2, Episode 13. Now, if you remember, in that episode, when Michonne appeared, what we basically had was Andrea was struggling, walkers were trying to get her, and she was basically as good as dead until Michonne showed up with her walker pets and her katana. She sliced the walker who was trying to get to Andrea in half, and she saves Andrea. And that's how we're introduced to this Michonne character. Now, fun fact, that was actually not Danai Gurira who played that part back in Season 2. It was actually a double or someone who looked like her. Now, they didn't really show her face, so they could just use pretty much anyone in that scene, but it was not Danai Gurira. She was actually not even cast as Michonne at that time. This opening minute is pretty much the exact same scene, but it's partially from Michonne's perspective. So we actually see Michonne before she saves Andrea. Or does she? And I'll explain what I mean by that. But what we have here is a reflection of Michonne and her walker pets. Then she finds some bullets on the ground. She picks them up. Now, if you kind of think back about what happened at that time and the story that we were involved with at that time, these are most likely connected to the governor in some way, shape, or form. These may have been shot by the governor's people. It could be other survivors as well, but I think it makes a lot of sense for these bullets to have originated from some sort of a conflict or skirmish with the governor's people. But I could be wrong about that. But Michonne picks them up. She's looking around. This is a pretty awesome shot of Michonne. This was actually in many of the teasers that they released before. And even when this was released, I mentioned that this looks like a Michonne from Season 3, and it's probably a flashback, and I was right about that, and these are flashbacks from Michonne. Obviously, Danai Gurira as Michonne just recently shot these scenes, so it's not like they shot these back then and decided not to use it, or knew that she was going to exit and are using it now. No, none of that. She's just shooting these scenes now, but she looks like the Michonne from back then. But then Michonne hears some noises around. There's a walker who approaches. She kills the walker, and then she hears a gunshot. And that gets her attention. She looks over, and it's none other than Andrea running away from the walkers. Now, if you go back to that scene from Season 2, Episode 13, you can pretty much line these up. Like, this is the exact same footage, but they just reused it. But Andrea runs away. Michonne continues looking at her. Of course, the scenes with Michonne is new, but the scenes with Andrea, those are reused. But Andrea runs away. Walkers try to get to her. Andrea kills some walkers, but also she struggles as well. She falls to the ground. A walker gets to her, and at this point, this is the exact same moment from the show where Michonne shows up with her katana, slices the walker in half, and reveals to us, the audience, that she has these walker pets, and this is her introduction to the show. And she saves Andrea. And at this point, I thought that's exactly where they were going to go with this. And I thought that this was going to be a pretty awesome and nice little callback and flashback scene with Michonne saving Andrea, but it's from Michonne's perspective as well. But that's not what happens. Michonne continues looking at Andrea. She hears her screaming. She doesn't care, and she just walks away. So this is an alternate scene. It's like in an alternate universe. So it's like a what if Michonne never saved Andrea. So that's extremely interesting. At this point, I don't know whether I'm a fan of these kind of what if scenarios that they might be planning to do. I mean, where does it stop? Are you just gonna do that with every character? What if Negan never killed Glenn and Abe? What if Rick never disappeared? You know what I mean? So it does get a little bit cheesy, and it's a bit of a slippery slope, if you know what I mean. But I do like the idea, but I just hope that it's not something that they're gonna keep doing. I can definitely see fans asking for more characters to have these what if scenes. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like I said, it just makes no sense because it doesn't add anything to the story. In this case, it might actually add something to the story if they end up using this in a way that I think they're going to use it. How I think they're probably utilizing these scenes, these alternative scenarios, is that what we're going to see is Michonne is going to walk away, and we might even come back to Michonne from time to time and check with her in this alternative universe while Michonne's current storyline is taking place. And what we might potentially see is that she ends up being a bad character, being a villain, sort of like Negan. And that might even feed into the scene where we have Michonne holding Lucille. Like, she might end up becoming this kind of evil person who is just like Negan, who kills people. You know what I mean? So that might be where they're going with it. And what we might even see is that she might be seeing these in her dreams. Like, it's an alternative universe, but it's in Michonne's head. Like, she is dreaming about these. And she might be dreaming about these when she is trapped. Because we do know that she might be trapped in this episode. And Virgil might have used her as bait. We're going to get to that. But the next scene we're going to talk about is a conversation between Virgil and Michonne. Virgil is kneeling down looking at something, and Michonne is by his side. Michonne asks Virgil, "Are there any weapons here at all?" So of course, what got Michonne to come with Virgil in the first place was that Virgil told her, "I'm from this place where we have a lot of weapons, a lot of advanced weapons that you can use to take care of your threat, your problem." And that's precisely the reason why Michonne even entertained the idea to go with Virgil. So Michonne is asking, are there any weapons here at all? So what that hints at is Michonne is slowly realizing that Virgil may have lied to her. And then we have Virgil saying, "I promised that I would help you check, and I will." So that's another clue. He promised to help her check. So he's not sure himself, but he appeared pretty confident about it when he told her about it. So that's interesting. And then Michonne walks away. She's angry. She says, "I'm going to find them myself." Virgil gets up and he's like, "The island is not clear." And Michonne is pissed off even more and she says, "It's not clear." And I think what she's probably thinking is, why the hell did you take me on this journey if it's not clear? You know what I mean? And then Virgil says, "It was until the others came." This is another clue. Others came and took over the island. We did see a hint of this in the trailer where we saw this research lab facility on a map of the campus. We saw different groups being assigned to different areas of the campus. These groups could be from the same big group that took over, the same group that Virgil is referring to here. And that group could possibly be from the CRM, which is the group that took Rick Grimes. So that's extremely interesting. I do have another video talking about all of the clues that we have that Michonne does in fact come across something to do with CRM. So that's going to be a separate video. But Virgil says it was until the others came. And then he says it brought violence. The sickness came with it. So that's interesting. Now, one question I have is this sickness the zombie virus? Or is it something else? Like, is Virgil saying that they were in this community before everything went down, before the actual virus came? Or is he saying that they were there, they had a community established, and then this group came and brought the violence and the sickness with it? But he's probably just talking about the zombie virus. But then he says, killed my family. So the sickness that came killed his family. So that's interesting. Now, there is a little bit of a contradiction here because later in this same sneak peek, he says, my family is still back there. So that's confusing. Maybe I heard it wrong, but I even put the captions on and that's exactly what came up, killed my family. So it appears like he's saying the sickness came and killed my family. But later on, he takes that back. So that's kind of confusing. But he says, we never had a lot of rippers, so I never got good doing what it is you do. Not exactly sure what he's talking about when he's saying rippers. Maybe he's talking about the zombies. So he's saying, I'm not really that good killing walkers because the group came, they took over, they were ruling over us, and they were keeping us safe. And so I never had to be outside the community to deal with the walkers myself. So that could be what he's referring to here. And then he says, you're good with the sword. And Michonne asks, what are you asking me? So obviously Virgil wants her to help him. So then he says, my family is still in there, referring to the community or the naval base. This goes back to what I said before. There's a contradiction. He says, my family is still in there. But he said before, my family was killed. So that's kind of confusing. But then he says, my wife, my babies, that's why I've asked you to come in, need you to come. So he's asking for her help, and in a way he used Michonne. Now there is a possibility that he could be lying still and he could be luring Michonne in for other purposes. He might be using her as bait to trade to the CRM. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in that other video that I talked about. But as far as the sneak peeks go, that's pretty much it. That's both of the sneak peeks that they released. Very, very interesting. Again, this is going to be Michonne's final episode. So we're going to find out one way or the other whether she has an open exit and whether her exit is going to put her in a spot where she can possibly reunite with Rick, or whether she's going to die by the end of this episode or not. But with that, I want to know everyone's thoughts and opinions about these sneak peeks. Do you think Virgil is still lying, or do you think he is now telling the truth? And also, what did you think of that flashback alternative universe scene with Andrea that we looked at earlier? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads.